I didn't realize at the time what I was losing. I didn't feel the full gravity. Like I didn't know. I just kind of felt like, yeah, it's not for me anymore. I'll just stop going. But I didn't realize just how much of my identity and my support system was all centralized in this one place. So like I didn't realize for the past like 5 years, I've just been in this state of chronic grief, and I was so depressed all the time. And like every relationship I was getting into, I kept trying to replace all of that because it was so centralized and so it was all in that one thing. And now I'm trying to find something that I can just quickly refill that with. And, I didn't realize that it takes you a long time to refine your identity, your community, your support system, like even like your own values and everything.
Welcome to another episode of RfR Deconstruction Stories. I'm Rob Palmer, and I'm an ambassador and helpline agent for Recovering from Religion. Often, someone reaching out to us on the RfR helpline for support asks the agent helping them to tell them their background story and where they stand on religious matters, or to hear about their deconstruction history. Well, personal disclosure is discouraged on our helpline. So this series is intended as an online resource for people with those questions about our volunteers. Now our agents can say, hey, take a look at the RfR Deconstruction Story playlist on the Recovering from Religion YouTube channel. And hopefully the interviews will be helpful for anyone else questioning their faith who discovers our content on YouTube. In this episode, I'll be talking with Nathan Allen. Welcome, and thanks for agreeing to share your story here.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I'm really glad that you're doing this. I need to practice more of telling this story because I've wanted to record or write down or document my deconstruction story in some way over the years, but I've never been able to really compose it in a way that feels satisfying. So it's really good. It's nice to actually have somebody doing it in this way where I don't have to overthink it because, I'm just talking to somebody. So
yeah,
good.
But if you decide you do want to get it in writing, and I'll let people know that who are watching this, Recovering from Religion has a blog. So we let volunteers as well as clients, if they feel like it, write up their own thoughts and stories and submit it for publishing on the Recovering from Religion blog. And you can find the blog on our main page. It's in the pull-down menu for online media. It's hosted on excommunications.com. And there's all sorts of stories from people with all different faith backgrounds there. So you might want to think about that.
No.
So what were your original beliefs? How did you come to them?
Yeah, so I was raised in an evangelical home. When I was 4 years old, I was told that I needed to accept Jesus or I was going to go to hell. And that was the guiding thing that drove my life forward from there on out, just that belief that I needed to maintain this identity and I needed to represent these beliefs to the fullest, or else I would face eternal torment afterwards in the next whatever comes after,
What was the name of your
congregation? When I was growing up, I was just kind of told that we were Christians. I think we owned it as we were the real Christians. But over time, as I've gotten older and I've been able to look back, I actually know that we were part of a denomination called the Plymouth Brethren.
I have never heard of that. Is it a large group?
I only know this because I know that we identified as assemblies and the type of structure. One of the defining characteristics is we didn't believe in clergy, the idea of hierarchies and pastors. Because I'm an artist, I do music. I think of things in terms of majors and indies. I think of Plymouth Brethren as almost like an indie label of the major evangelical, where it's very communal. Our churches were very small. The first service, it was very quiet. It was very solemn. At some point we would settle in and then one man, women weren't allowed to speak, but one man at a time would just stand up and share so this is what I've been reading this past week and thinking about, and share what was on his heart for that day. And then say can we sing this song in this hymnal? And then we would sing a cappella. The second service, when somebody would preach, we would have somebody play a piano. But it was very bare bones. It was a very minimalist, like I said, no clergy. I think a certain selection of the men in the church were appointed as elders, and they would take turns delivering the sermon of that week.
So it was the same people every week, or are you saying there was a rotation of people who did this?
Yeah, the rotation of the elders, like the men in the church that would each Sunday take turns giving a sermon. So like there was no like pastor. So it was like basically like equally sharing the responsibility of the leadership, you know?
And how did you get that position? Was it just you just volunteered to do it?
You know, I guess. I think there's some verse in the Bible that gives like, specific criteria, or at least that we interpreted were the criteria for who can like be an elder and like the other men within the church or the other elders to, I don't
And of course,
well,
no.
when I think about it, when I'm saying it out loud, I'm just like, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Of course, no women, as you mentioned.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So in your write up to me before this interview last week, you mentioned another thing I'd never heard of besides the Plymouth Brethren. You said A.E. Booth's Chart of Ages was hanging on the wall. What is that?
Yeah, so if you Google it, A.E. Booth, Chart of the Ages, I think it's called From Eternity Past to Eternity Future. Someone drew up this very, very detailed, artsy map of the universe from eternity past to eternity future. But
So
like,
is eternity not being like the typical thing I hear from fundamentalists is like, 10,000 years? Like, is eternity a longer time than that?
you can see in the image, they kind of show it as this big planet. I don't know. It's like, yeah, basically it's like before God created the world. And then they show when the world was created and then different dispensations in the ways God has interacted with the world. And then it shows on the far right side, you see the judgment seat of Christ and everything that happens in the book of Revelation and the new heaven and the new earth. And it's crazy because like I think about it sometimes. I just remember seeing that on the wall and just thinking like, yeah, that's like the whole story. You know what I'm saying? like the whole history of the universe. It's right there in a little rectangle.
Comforting to have all the truth in one little place.
Yeah. I think of it as almost like this symbol to me of just how much we felt like we had it figured out. We were so deep into biblical literalism and that everything you need to know is in this one spot that we really believed that we could have the whole picture that simple, just like that.
So this means you were indoctrinated with the fear of hell then, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was a big reason why it took me years and years and years to actually even admit to myself that I didn't identify with this anymore because they'll say that like you believe to be saved and it's not by works or anything like that, but that almost makes it scarier in a way because like what it tells you is that you have to maintain an identity. You have to maintain a belief. It's almost like so abstract and nebulous. Like it's just like, oh my gosh, what can I do to it makes it even scarier.
So if you start having any doubts, then it becomes worrisome to you that you're on the wrong path. And
for sure. Yeah.
So, how deep in was the rest of your family?
They're still deep into it. I kind of have started to realize that I've needed to give myself a little bit more grace because it took me, I would say probably in like 2015 or so, 2016, I had kind of started realizing that like, okay, like maybe I'm not completely bought and sold into this. But it wasn't until like 2021 that I was like, okay, I don't think I can continue going to church. It's just not working for me. It's just not effective for me anymore. And then it's taken even more years, like from there until now, to really feel like I didn't realize at the time what I was losing. I didn't feel the full gravity. Like I didn't know. I just kind of thought like, yeah, it's not for me anymore. I'll just stop going. But I didn't realize just how much of my identity and my support system was all centralized in this one place. So like, I didn't realize for the past like 5 years, I've just been in this state of chronic grief, and I was so depressed all the time. And like every relationship I was getting into, I kept trying to replace all of that because it was so centralized and so it was all in that one thing. And now I'm trying to find something that I can just quickly refill that with. And, I didn't realize that it takes you a long time to refine your identity, your community, your support system, like even like your own values and everything. It's not too unlike, I think in some way everybody kind of experiences something similar when they grow up and they move out of their parents' home. I had to completely relearn my whole relationship to everything.
So what was your drive to do that? Was it moving out and meeting people of different beliefs?
That's definitely part of it. I think at some point, what was constantly within me, what was really driving me from the early times is like, as you get older and you meet more people, you have to accept the fact at some point that Christianity has existed for a finite period of time. And all these other people and all like on the other side of the world and all these countries and all these people who speak different languages and everything, they all have a completely different belief system and they're getting along fine somehow, like I think that was a big driving thing, was like, I want to find out how all these people are getting along. I didn't mention yet, but I was also homeschooled from first grade up through eighth grade. And that was probably one of the earliest steps in my deconstruction, was like when I was in eighth grade, I asked to go to public school. And it was because I was like, how are these other people getting by? I was even told that we were smarter because we were homeschooled and that there was all this secularism going on in the public school. And I just had to see it for myself. And I think a very similar thing drove me to leave Christianity too. I need to experience firsthand how other people are getting along in life. And
Are you surprised that your parents just relented and let you do that, make the decision?
they didn't just relent. At first, I actually didn't go until halfway through the year. I didn't go until the second semester of eighth grade. I'm sure there was a ton of things going on and the distrust of the public school system and all that.
Well, yeah, because they're going to teach you science, and that's the devil's work.
Yeah, so after I went in, my two brothers actually followed in the year behind me.
Oh, that's cool. So you're the pathfinder there.
Yeah.
So are your brothers also out of the religion?
No, they're still both very involved in it. I think when I was growing up, not only was it a different time, you're talking about a different generation, but also like my family was very much part of a movement of people that were like, everything we need is within the Bible and we need to study these things with the Greek and the Hebrew translations and figure out what each individual word really means, because we're going to get to the bottom of what this book is telling us. And I think the church that my brothers attend with their families is a little more mainstream. But if you're an American evangelical, if you're an American Christian, it's all just kind of different flavors of conservative. Were you at the fall excursion this year?
No.
I don't remember.
No, I've not yet made it. You went?
Yeah, I did. And I remember Jason gave some kind of a talk where he showed the different quadrants of the political compass and all that thing. And you see where our leaders are in like this very specific, like, here's our conservative and here's our liberal. And there's this whole expanse of the different political quadrants and everything. We're jumping between left and right way up here in this tiny little box. I feel like Christianity in America is kind of like that. I think monotheism has really influenced how we've shaped our society and our culture, this idea of there's a God in the sky and there's a ton of us underneath serving. I think we build a lot of pyramids in this country, because of that. I don't think a lot of people have really reckoned with how much that monotheism and Christianity has impacted the way we view and have built our culture here.
So yeah, that's interesting. I know there are flavors of Christianity where they don't even believe in the Trinity, but that's rare. So that might be even more monotheistic. But I guess Trinitarians still think it's one God, even though there's three personalities or whatever. I've always been confused about that. Even when I was raised Christian, how is it 3 in 1 if it's one? I don't understand that. Anyway,
No, it's like a language, you know what I'm saying? I tell people that evangelicalism is like my first language. Even though I don't believe it or whatever, I can hear it and I can probably even give like a sermon, it's just like a language that I understand it. Like I speak it, even though trying to explain it to other people, I'm just like, but.
So the thing that I often will get in my real life relationships with people who are Christian and they come to understand that I'm not a believer. And I'm wondering if you got this. Like, now, where do you get your morality from? Where's your meaning in life coming from?
Yeah.
So, because that was all imbued in you as, to serve God, to worship God and whatever, and to get to heaven. And then you decided that's not true. So how did you make that transition?
I mean, that's just been like a whole bunch of... Ultimately, I guess it's just been meeting people. It's just been building other relationships. It's been trying new things. But like I said, it was really hard. There were many, many years following my exit from the church where I kept trying to replace that because I didn't realize the gravity and how big and impactful it was. Sometimes I would do it at my jobs or in my relationships. I would think that I could just insert myself over here and just have a whole new family just like that, and it's just like, that's not practical.
So did you become an angry atheist? We often hear that term applied to people who decide that their religion is wrong and they've wasted a lot of time or whatever. They've been lied to or whatever, however they feel about it. Did that happen to you?
That's such an interesting thing for me to talk about because before I left the church, I think something in me knew that the conversation of is it true or not is not as impactful or not as important as what is the function of it. And I've gone in and out of phases of feeling angry, but also kind of like feeling kind of embarrassed for feeling angry. And like, I never had a full on committed angry atheist phase. It was kind of almost like this bitter X type energy, but then also kind of being like, but I gotta get over that, like have you ever seen the movie Big Fish?
No.
Even though I don't have a religion, I feel like I still use movies and art to fill in those mythology gaps. Big Fish is a great movie where a kid grows up being told all these tall tales by his dad about his life. And as he gets older, he realizes like, wait, this is all BS. Like you couldn't have done all that stuff. But his dad still maintains like, no, this is my life. He maintains this elaborate mythology about his whole life. And he's just like, I just want to know who you are. Like I'm just trying to figure out what's real, what's fake, in
the movie, why was the father lying?
Because he was just a character. He was just but he wouldn't break character. And at the end of the story, the son eventually realizes that these stories say more about the father's personality. It's like it's his love language. He tells the stories to illustrate his feelings. The question is not necessarily as much what's true and what's false as much as who is my dad and what type of person is and what's his character, and the fact that he loved his life enough to tell it in such a fun and playful way. I don't know how well I just explained it, but that's how I think of deconstruction and having left the church, is that for a while, you're just like, I just want to know what's real, but you eventually learn the function and why people construct these stories,
That's the big pull, I find. Keeping many people in a religion, there's a lot of reasons. One, you mentioned, is community. The other one is like that you believe that your understanding of everything now you have is fully correct, right? And then being that yanked away from somebody is a big deal. I mean, you trained in, at least the Christian religion, that you have an afterlife, that God is your, friend, you have a relationship, and he's going to answer your prayers, and, you're going to see your dead loved ones in the afterlife. And as you start disbelieving all of that gets yanked away, and then you have to start reformulating what you believe about those kinds of things that you're comfortable with. And a lot of people are not comfortable changing their ideas on those things, even if they're subjected to hard evidence about the other things in their holy book, like, creationism and stuff like that. So one of the things you did write about, like, what was the reason, was you called it the political violence of evangelicalism.
Oh, yeah.
And when I first read that sentence, I thought you were talking about Christian theocracy and that. But then you went on to say how you fundamentally disagree with the idea of saving the lost. So, like, what's that about?
Well, yeah. Well, I think Christianity as like a value system, or as like as a spirituality practice, there's nothing necessarily wrong. Everybody has their ways of getting by in the world. But I think the practice of proselytization, that idea of we have found the right thing, we have found what's true, and everyone outside of this is lost. I just think that's an inherently xenophobic and
everyone outside of this, did that involve all other Christians that weren't part of your denomination? Was Catholics going to hell?
Catholics were going to hell, yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. Other denominations were kind of weird, but I think we kind of accepted that. I guess they were in the same boat.
Mormons, definitely Mormons going to hell, because they followed that Joseph Smith guy.
Yeah. I don't tell my story to a whole ton of people. It's not something to share very often, especially since a significant number of people I know. All my family is still in the church, probably like a good percentage of like my friends on Facebook and everything. Like, I mean, it's kind of like no matter how far I leave, I mean, it's still like I could find these people again, and they'd still be there. It's my home country, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah. How did you reach out to Recovering from Religion to become a volunteer? How'd that happen?
eventually somehow the algorithms find out what you're going through. you start getting recommended videos on YouTube of like, I left the church and whatever, and let me tell you about my story. I found this one video, and where someone was sharing the deconstruction story, and she posted like a link to Recovering from Religion in the description. And so I was like, well, anybody who's going through this right now, I need people to talk to about this. So
Oh, so
yeah.
you were a client before you became a volunteer then?
Yeah, I wasn't a very active client. I went to a few support groups. I didn't do too well on the Zoom calls. I kind of would introduce myself and then listen to everybody else for 2 hours, and I wasn't too good at getting involved. I think it's just because of like the virtual nature of it. Yeah, so I did a little bit of that. I've seen a few therapists over the years. I really started getting really involved with Recovering from Religion when I reached out to start volunteering. And then after doing that, that's how I got involved in the online community, and yeah.
And
And then
what's your volunteer role been?
I added the RfRX talks. I take the Monday night talks and I cut out all the fillers and all the dead air and stuff, and I make them condensed to go on the YouTube channel.
Well, that's fantastic. Maybe you can take a load off me and you can edit this one instead of me editing it. Like doing this on myself.
Yeah, there you go. And then I can actually find the parts of me and be like, yeah, get that out of here.
All right. So, what else would you say to anyone else, thinking about reaching out to us either for support or to be volunteer?
Definitely reach out. There was a long time where I did not feel safe reaching out to anybody. I didn't know who to talk to. I felt like wherever I went to, it was going to become like another cult. For a while, I didn't really even trust like Recovering from Religion, because I was like, is this going to just turn into another religion itself? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like that distrust that you get from being held so tightly in this one little space and being taught that everything outside of it is evil. And my church split like 3 times before I made it to high school. The church I was a part of was born out of a rejection for the local Bible chapel that we saw as selling out and going too mainstream. And this was in like 1999.
Yeah. So what you wrote was 3 church dissents, and I didn't know that word, so I didn't quite understand what you're talking about. So you mean your church split 3 times? While
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I often hear this number bandied about on atheist media, and I've never seen a citation, so I find it unbelievable. But the number is always spouted as 40,000 Christian denominations. But hearing something like that reinforces that could be true. It's like, wow, just in that short period of time from one church, one denomination, 3 splits. That's amazing.
Yeah, if you believe that you need to follow the Bible to the letter of the law, you get really divisive about it.
And I guess the smallest thing is just like, no, now they're going to hell. We have to do it this way.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. All right, Nathan. Well, thank you for joining me today and sharing your story. I'm sure this will be helpful to other people.